Alright, Elite Co 3 here. Today's video is going to be another Bulls and Bears. So if you're a fan of those videos, strap in for this one. I think I have 10 Bulls, 8 Bears, and one card that's kind of like a market neutral. It hasn't really moved in the two time periods that I'm comparing. So the two periods that I'm going to compare here, and all these cards are PSA slabs, so I'm comparing PSA prices basically. July 2010 of the Sports Market Report compared to the current magazine, which just came out last week, which is the April 2018 magazine. So almost 8 years of time has passed since the comparison of these two dates. So let's start off with this one. Now this was a tailback that was one of the best tailbacks of his era. Unfortunately, as you know, I've talked about a lot on the channel, and other collectors have found out the hard way, is tailbacks are really tough to collect if you're looking at it from a long-term point of view. The reason being, they get beat up quicker, shorter careers, and when they do fade from the limelight, their stuff fades too. So this Steven Jackson was I couldn't find a price for it in the current magazine because they just take out cards that aren't hot sometimes. But I know I picked this one up for about 75 bucks, and the price in 2010 was 150. So that's a pretty drastic decline, but one that's expected of tailbacks. We're going to flip the switch over now to a bull, and this bull is a nice solid bull. I showed the 92 Bowman Piazza in one of my most recent videos. This card's just beautiful. This is the 92 Fleer Update Piazza in a PSA 10. Current value of this is 160, and I'm a fan of the SMR because I feel like if you compare the values that they put in their magazine to actual sold prices on Terapeak, they're really close and accurate. So this is 160 now, and back then it was 80. So a nice jump in price on the Piazza. Back to Bear, so I'm just going to flip back and forth. Here's a Bear, and a lot of people will be like, what, Peyton Manning Bear? But I mean, I'm just comparing the prices here. Peyton's cards were, I think some of them were hotter back, during the 2010 time period. This is a very cool, sleek Leaf Rookies and Stars, and the current price is 50 compared to 105, so it has declined some. Still a beautiful card, and if you think about it, it's a Peyton Manning card. If it's dropped that much, is it really going to drop anymore? Probably not. So it'd be a great time to pick up a card like this. This is a nuts card. It's a Rogers Spa. So I picked some of these up back in the winter of it was actually the winter of 2010. So about 7 years ago, there was a guy that sold me like 3 of these. I think they were around like 900 bucks. So at the time, I was like, God, this is nuts paying this much for Rogers. But it's one of those cards that happened to work out, which is nice. It's the SP Authentic. It's got the 3 colors, so I think it's obviously worth more than a 2 color or a 1. It's out of 99. This is just nuts, guys. The price back then was 185. The price today is 4,000. So just an astounding rise. This is probably the best bull. Yeah. Actually, I might have one that's actually a little better in terms of the increase in value. So there's the Rogers. I think I've shown that one on a video in the past. Here's another tailback. So you're going to see a trend of tailbacks in these Bulls and Bears series, of tailbacks being Bears. So this Chris Johnson, it's not in the current issue of the magazine, but back in 2010, a PSA 9 of this was at 125, and I think if you search this card, you'd see it going for about 15 to 25 now, maybe even less. So dramatic drop in Chris Johnson stuff, but I mean, it's tough to keep your value if you're a tailback. Here's a badass Tomlinson Contenders. This is a 10, so 490 back then, that's a rock solid price, I think. But there's just been a rise in this and the Breeze in the past couple of years. So the current value, this is 1,600. So drastic. What is that? Over 300% spike for this bull. This actually has a print run of 600. It's not numbered though. Back to a Bear, and it's a Peterson. It's one of the coolest cards I think from 2007. It's the SPX. It's not a crazy Bear. It's just something that I saw, and I kind of expected. So the current value of this is 150 for a PSA 9, and the old value was 250. So it has dropped off. Just an overall neat card. This was a really hot card at one point. I think these have sold for over 400 in the past, but obviously he's not the hottest player right now. Here's a Walter Payton Topps. So this one's off center a little. It is a PSA 8, so that's allowed. The jump from an 8 to a 9 is pretty astounding, and obviously from a 9 to a 10 as well. But an 8 is currently 350, and it used to be 210. So pretty nice rise for this Payton, and I think paying 350 for this card is a nice price for a card this old of a player of his caliber. It seems like a good buy to me. So Walter Payton, if you can find one that's decently centered and looks like an actual 8, buy the card, not the grade. Here's a bear. This isn't going to surprise a lot of people, really. I think it's a nice time to buy Pujols. I know I was watching Baseball Card Junkies doing a binge this weekend, and they were talking about Pujols, and I was like, oh yeah, they're definitely right on Pujols. His stuff's cooled ever since he went over to the Angels, and I think after he retires and people think more of his Cardinals days, his stuff's going to jump back up. So this is the SPX to 1500. It's the on-card auto. It's a beautiful card. It really is. I bought this one raw and got it slabbed and got an 8 on it, so not a terrible grade. The value on this now is 225, which is just a steal in my opinion. The old value was 400, so it has been knocked down a bit. There's the back again. We got a Calvin Contenders. This is a neat card. I was pretty shocked by the list price back then. It was only $70 for a 10 of the Contenders, and the current price is 200. I believe this card peaked at around 350 when he was still playing, but I don't see much of a drop off in this card if you're looking to get a Calvin. Will he get to the Hall of Fame? I honestly don't know. His receivers with better numbers still waiting, like Holt and Bruce, so we'll see what happens with him. Back to a bear, and it's one of the most iconic football cards. I mean, obviously I'm going to say that because I'm a Vic fan, but I think a lot of people will have respect for how much this card was worth back in the day. This card raw, I know this because I once paid $1,200 for it raw, which is nuts, but I mean, you see drop-offs all the time. How much would it cost for this raw now? I'd say about $350. So it's a pretty steep drop-off, but there's definitely been worse examples than this card. So this is a PSA 9, and it's not really a crazy drop-off. It's $350 now. Is that right? Yeah, it's $350 now, and it was $475 back then. So not a crazy drop off, but still something to note. This one actually was pretty intriguing to me. This is the Topps rated bonds. I didn't know what I was going to see when I compared the two values, but what I saw was a strong bull. I think back before all this stuff dropped off, this card was worth more than $90. I don't know. Somebody, I think Nate could tell me what this card was worth at its peak. But right now it's about $90, and in 2010 it was $35. So that's a pretty nice jump for it. $35 for this card is just nuts. That's so low. Here's a bear. Now I didn't have market data for this, obviously, because it came out in 2012, and I'm comparing it to 2010. But I know, I mean, this is one of the ones I've been burned with. So I've showed you some examples where I did great, and I'm going to tell you the honest truth when I did terrible. So I once paid $550 for this card, and current value is around $60. So this is the photo variation to 50. It's still a beautiful card, you know. I think if you're a Baylor fan or a Redskin fan, for picking this up for $50 or so would be a cool pickup, but it's just not. It doesn't have any room to go up either. But I don't think it'll drop much more. I mean, what's it gonna go down to? $10? I just can't see that happening. We got the Brady pros and prospects, and I think pretty much any Brady that you pick up and compare the values, you know, over this long of a time period, as much as his stuff has risen, you're gonna see some astounding price changes, and this is no different. So this is the pros and prospects. I used to pick these up for about 150 to 200, and I thought it was expensive at the time, but they've shot up more. So a PSA 9 of this was 230, which is that's a good price, and now they have it at 650. So it has jumped up. There's inside of 1,000 right there. It's actually a beautiful card, and it's not the toughest to slab with those white borders and edges. So let's do another bull because we only have one bear left to talk about. So this is the only basketball card that I'm going to show. So this is the 2003 Bowman Rookies and Stars paper of LeBron. It was only $55 in 2010. So, I mean, his stuff just continues to climb year after year. So I'm still buying, even though they're pretty much at market all-time highs. But I expect them to go higher. So, 55 back then, 200 now. $55 for a 10 in this. It's crazy how much cards can change. So I'm going to show the last one, and let's take it out of this. I don't use these anymore since Perfect Fit came along. Now this is a pretty weak bear. It hasn't really dropped that much, but I still wanted to note it. And it's another one of the known steroid users. So the 1994 Star Rookies Upper Deck Alex Rodriguez PSA 10. Value back then was 60, and it's dropped to 40. So that's not a crazy drop off, but it is expected. I do think he will get in the Hall of Fame, but this is still a badass card. Okay, I'm gonna do this one, and then we'll do a couple bowls, and then we'll do the one that was didn't change much. So this is probably the best bowl I can show you out of all the ones I looked at, and you guys are going to go nuts when you hear what this card was worth. So I used to pick these up for about 25 to $30 back in 2010 when the Saints were getting hot, when they were undefeated. And I think they were like 15 or 20 a couple years before that. And, it seemed like a pretty good deal for a Topps Chrome refractor card like this. And the price on a 9 back then was $60, which isn't bad at all. The price now is $1,000. So, I mean, this card, I think it's because it's Topps Chrome, and it's just got a nice shine to it. It just hit my eyes. I'm just kidding. It's a great-looking card, though. So, 999 Breeze Topps Chrome, PSA 9. Last bull is a Moss Future Watch, PSA 9. This is a steady bull. I'm seeing this. It's in the past year, I think it's jumped the most. There's been a lot of auctions ending at about 300, 350, and I think it's pushing towards 400 now. Back in 2010, it was 150, which is a pretty damn good price, and now it's 350. So it has jumped up. Some of these are hand numbered on the back, and those are the ones I think that were damaged out of the pack, and they got fixed by Upper Deck. They sent out replacements and hand numbered them. Those do sell for about 75% of what the machine numbered ones go for. So if you see one on eBay, try to pay less for it so you don't get ripped off. Tony Gwynn. This is one that I thought was interesting. There's a lot of sets like this, like sets I compared kind of during the junk wax era. There wasn't a lot of movement, and that might just because there's so many of them. The market doesn't have anywhere to go. So I looked at like the top straighted Griffey, the Donruss Griffey went up, of course, but Mark McGuire, Donruss 87. A lot of the junk wax rookies stayed about the same, and this one was 65 back then, and it's at 70 now, so it's about the same. The Gwynn Donruss 83 and a 10. So that's it, guys. Bulls and Bears. I really like the cards I picked for this one. Let me know what you guys think about the price changes and the video. Thanks.